These were only $69 each. Home Depot had another sale on these, and they were fantastic. So we put them in there, put a pair of them in, and kind of works, kind of neat. Of course, when it's done, all the weeds are on fresh black mulch. We'll do it one more time. But this is work in progress, and hopefully you'll see it when it's all complete. Thanks so much. One last look. Look down there. Look at the wind. Look at this. It's just gorgeous. I feel like I'm in Hawaii, you know, with a sunny day, and God, what more could you ask for? I tell you, I like it. So somebody wanted to know why we albacore fish and what it's all about. It's about this, white gold. This is the premium of the tuna family, white albacore. We can it, we jarred ourselves. Scarriest bumblebee. At one time, California was like one of the biggest companies in the world with the tuna fishing in San Diego and all that. So, but this is a cold water fish, so it swims all the way up north, all the way to the Canadian border. And somebody also asked me, so what is the scariest moments you've ever had in commercial fishing? Well, I'm about to tell you. So these like cold water, so they like up north by, you know, San Francisco, Morro Bay, Half Moon Bay, Bodega Bay, Fort Bragg, that kind of area. So I got to know this guy. He was a friend when I was commercial fishing out of Half Moon Bay, 30 miles south of San Francisco. And I was in San Francisco, tied up a pier like 15 or something, you know, the famous piers there that you see in Fisherman's Wharf. And, you know, we kind of hung out a little bit and, you know, good friends, and just kind of really got to know each other, you know, and just while we were both in port. Well, he was on a boat called the Carroll. Now, the Carroll was out of Newport, Oregon. And he had told me that he was out on some really bad day. I mean, and the Coast Guard heard him on the radio, and the Coast Guard's like, oh, you know, somebody's out that day? And they're like, yeah, you know. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And they came in, I guess I talked to him, and he goes, oh, you guys down here, because, you know, Oregon and Washington is rougher than San Francisco, you know, usually, but not always. Don't kid yourself. So the Coast Guard, you know, was telling him this, and he goes, you know, this is kiddie walk out here. And I go, I don't know, dude. Doesn't seem like it to me. So I go out on a 5-day trip on my 1947 boat. I had 5 of them. They called me Captain Derelict because I would buy all the boats that nobody wanted in the harbor. And the harbor master told me, Eric, you should just go get a plaque right now and go put it on, you know, Lost at Sea right now. They didn't believe me. They thought it was a drug runner or something. But I have a love for fishing tuna. I've always loved fishing albacore for sport. So I tried to do it for money to fund the antique business. Well, it looked good on paper, but it didn't work. So anyway, I ended up, I go out on a 5-day trip. I come in, and usually boats tie up in certain areas according to how big they are, and like if they're selling to this particular cannery, then they'll, or this buyer, they'll park right in front, you know. So I pulled in, and a lot of times the spaces are not available. So I pulled in, and I go, oh, great, the Carroll's gone. I mean, you know, Carroll's out fishing. Right on. I'll pull right in their spot, you know. When they come in, we'll hang out, you know. Well, it turns out that, see, they were not gill netting, but they were dragging a fishery I can't stand. They pull these nets over these reefs, literally with rollers, and they roll over the reefs. It's just disgusting. It's one of the coolest things ever invented. We fish with lines and little lures and anchovies, and only the tuna eat it. No dolphin have ever eaten it. And it's the most safest, cleanest fishery. In fact, it's on the stewardship award in Europe. It's the cleanest fishery there is. We don't use any nets, nothing like that. Well, these guys are dragging these big nets. Well, they had a 3-mile limit. So a 3-mile limit, meaning you can't come within inside 3 miles. Well, these guys decided on the Carroll to break the rules. So they went inside the 3 miles, and they were dragging, and a road wave came and rolled them over. And the skipper, a couple guys died, and 2 people swam in and got hypothermia. So I pull in to this dock, and I don't see the boat, and I see this lady, and she's like got a station wagon full of stuff, and it was her sister to my friend, and she was basically taking her shocked brother, who was literally really a whole different person, not like the Joy that I knew him, totally different person, back to Oregon to quit, to never fish again. He had lost too many of his friends. And so that was one of the stories that I had while commercial fishing. Now I have another story for you, story number 2. So there's a guy who survived Vietnam, combat Vietnam, and he was on this boat off Half Moon Bay, and he went down in the engine room to do something, check the oil, and the shafts spin like that. You know, they're usually about this big, solid steel. Well, his slickers, you know, the things that they put on to keep the spray off it, got caught in the rotating shaft, ripped and tore his leg off completely. Now he's one-legged. He survived Vietnam. But I'm going to tell you my scariest moment ever in my life. So finally, you know, my dad and my stepmom and my wife, because when I leave to tuna fish, we leave for 4 months at a time. And I'm fishing up in Oregon and Washington this last time. And as I think I've told you, the Columbia River is the most dangerous port in the entire world. There's been more people killed there than anywhere. 2,200 deaths since they've kept track. And what happens is you have these rivers that come in from Idaho, and they all converge into one, and they funnel it down into the great almighty Columbia River. Well, as I was told you in my other video, a lot of the locals said don't ever go up there. And they also said don't fish after September 15th because they've lost too many of their friends. So we went out on a 4 or 5 day trip fishing sashimi, supplying all of Los Angeles and San Francisco with sushi. And it was beautiful sun, high pressure, gorgeous. And we got him good. We whacked him. We whacked him good. Well, it was my birthday around August 25th. So my wife and my stepmom and my dad decided to come on up to visit. And so we visited, and we actually, before that, we went to the Coast Guard Museum, which is the Coast Guard on their training. It shows the boats that they turn upside down, because that's where they train them to turn upside down to, rescue. So we went in. It's basically a museum of accidents in the Columbia River. It's the Coast Guard Museum in Astoria, Oregon. So I took my parents through there, and we were going through all this tour, and it just kind of felt kind of strange, doing this, and then here you are leaving for 4 days while they're, in town for another day. Well, we went out there, like I said. It was really sunny. It was nice. And then it was the last day, so we started coming in. Well, as we're coming in, all of a sudden, it was like somebody turned the dimmer light on, because the Columbia River is like 52 degrees. It's so cold that if you jump in the water, it just instantly shocks you. I went body surfing there, and it just shocked the hell out of me. It was so cold. So what happens is, when you have this cold water, the sun starts to get dreary, and the fog starts to set in. So I'm coming into the Columbia River on the entrance, and it's called an ebbing tide. One of the reasons why it's so bad in the Columbia River is they have what's called an ebbing tide. All the water rushing out this way, and then it meets the sea, and it creates this, upwelling. Well, what happened is the fog started setting in. I mean, thick fog, 100 yards, and I'm on the mouth of the Columbia River, and I'm coming in, and it's ebbing tide. You're supposed to time it to where it's slack tide or high tide. You never come in on an ebbing tide, but we had to. So I'm going full speed in a Detroit 871, the same engine, two-stroke engines, built from the 40s that won World War II. The old captain said these are the ones that World War II was won on. All the landing crafts, all the generators, all the air sea rescue, all the big PT boats are all done with the Detroit series. They had the 271, the 371, the 671, 871, 1271, and what it is 12 cylinders, 71 cubic inches is how they do, but they're really loud. So we had it full bore, and we're hearing this really loud engine I have, and I'm going full speed, and I'm looking at the GPS, and the GPS is about this big, and it has the arrow, and I'm all of a sudden looking, and the GPS is going like this, going like in circles. So what happens is our boat was going like in circles like this, and we're full speed, and I'm looking, and I look over, and I see the buoy, and the buoy's going like this. Those big buoys, those big round ones that you see, those huge buoys you see in the harbors, completely laying over like this, because it was like an 8-knot current going out, laying over like this. I'm coming in loud as hell, my frozen cold. The windows are all fogged up. You could barely see because of all the cold water. I had to, look out the window. My deckhand was just getting really, really nervous. And so all of a sudden I hear on the radio, vessel opposition, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I started looking at the GPS, and I go, man, I think that's me. And they're all by buoy 17, buoy 19, and what they are is they're odds, I think, on the right and evens on the left.